this is a salad that I made. There's some yam and like roasted yam and all sorts of things in there. I put green peas instead of chickpeas, grapes instead of raisins, and I'm using lettuce instead of kale. But that's basically this salad. So with this kind of Caspa toasted pearl couscous instead, and that's what it called for, but I made some substitutions, and I'll be reviewing this stack a little bit more. So it's taking me a while to get through it, and I keep adding more things to the stack as I go through. This time I added the Royal Hotel and Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. So it's harder and harder for me to get through the stack because I keep adding to it.
So what's this plate for?
Well, I thought maybe you might want to, because the salad it won't all fit in there, and there's, right? So I thought maybe you could put some lettuce in here and some salad, and then you could put the rest of this lettuce in there and then eat it later. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, what I'm going to do is just put the few bits of chicken.
Oh.
So they're not messing up.
Okay.
If I put it in here, it's going to mess up.
That sounds fine to me too. All right, so before I get reviewing stuff, I guess I'm going to take my, well, it's still too hot for you to eat?
I'm going to be taking the chicken out, so.
Okay, so I'll read without the mask on. So I'm reading another poem that was inspired by watching this, listening to Being Human. And this one's called Type A Botox Therapy, which I wrote May 2nd, 2024. I've always figured folks that are so vain that they get Botox shots are plain insane, since Botox is a toxin after all. Each wrinkle smoothed to death, however small, to leave a Botox face expressionless. Some like a lifeless mannequin, I guess. Neurologists have studied Botox now to see if the amygdala knows how to process anger that its face perceived because of Botox, like it was relieved. It seems that Botox fools the brains of fools. We often think our brains set all the rules. We think, and then we are what we believe. Our brains just process things that we perceive. Our skin and muscles sense the things we feel, so Botox brains don't sense that anger's real. I doubt Type A folks stress about their age, but they get angry and explode with rage, and so they're prone to suffer heart attacks. But what if Botox helped Type A's relax? Type A's could all get Botox therapy. It also calmed the folks these Type A's see. You might think I'm a fool or plain insane to think it might do good to fool a brain so it prevents a heart attack or stroke. This toxin might save lives, and death's no joke. Though Botox now is used cosmetically, it in the future could be a therapy.
Now, you were going with the standard opinion about Type A's.
Yes, and I'm just playing around with it. It's just kind of a joke of a poem. I'm not really serious about that. I honestly, I don't think that. I mean, you might be thinking, what's the point when someone could just use a joint or something like that? Or
anyway, it's more witty than jokey or something like that.
Whatever.
So
I'm
witty
just
is, like it shows some learning and all this sort of stuff. Anyway, yeah, Type A. Type A's. If you're Type A, not that a Type A would be exploding. It doesn't matter where in the political spectrum they'd come from, up, down, right, left, forward, backward. They wouldn't have much truck with what we've got to say. But here's a Type A guy. I think it's a little bit of a fallacy that they got this stress and they suffer more from heart attacks and stuff like that. It'd be bad diet for the heart attacks, not stress. So Lyndon Baines Johnson, LBJ. I don't get headaches. I give them.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Same sort of thing with heart attacks. I don't get heart attacks, not from my personality.
No, I was just thinking when he...
Yeah, I know.
When he was talking
it's not
about,
a criticism. You're just playing around with it. But I wanted to make clear to people that that is a false stereotype.
Yeah, well, I wanted to... When I was thinking about that the idea of type A's getting Botox, I just laughed and laughed. I kept laughing about the image of somebody who's really angry having a Botox face or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't.
Anyway, yeah, Lyndon
It's
Johnson's
just
the
a
kind of guy.
poem,
He had a couple
whatever.
of beagles, and they were so important to him. Their personalities. He called one him and the other her. But it, you know, like
Whatever.
how did he give headaches? They would have got headaches from this. He picked them up by the ears.
Oh, that's terrible.
And I can't remember what his little crack about it was, but yeah, that is terrible. He'd be giving them something like headaches, or very least earaches.
horrible.
Probably headaches too. Yeah.
Anyway, hacking your mind, that I'm taking everything from the top up off. We're not going to talk about that because I have to try to get through something this time. The Royal Hotel is from Australia, and it was really entertaining.
So it's actually an Australian production?
Yeah.
This is 2 in a row.
Yeah,
I
this
think, that you've
this
had,
was really
good.
and it
release.
also they mentioned Kylie Minogue in this one. One of the
Oh,
guys
good.
has Kylie Minogue on his sound system in his car. But yeah, you see some parts of Australia that don't look very attractive, and then some parts that are just paradise. You know, it's amazing. But
Very few of those parts are paradise, but yeah, most of them are like the Great Sandy Desert and the Great this or that. The Great
well,
Barrier
yeah,
Reef
a lot
would
of
be
people
awesome.
could come to Alberta, and depending on which way they go, they could have a very different impression of Alberta,
Okay,
right? So-
Alberta's got much more variety than Australia does spread around. What I'm saying about Australia is, you know, so much of it is dry. But they've got a great dividing range. Everything seems to be great there.
I have my mask
So-
on. You can
so-
eat.
Okay. They have a mountain range there. And they've got, I think it's something like monsoons. They've actually got a couple of spots around Perth, as I recall, and around Adelaide, where they got a Mediterranean climate. So what's that like, the Mediterranean or California? These are the places where people want to go. Doesn't matter where they come from in the world, really. They've probably got a fairly mild climate down in much of the state of Victoria. I think that's their southernmost state. And I suspect south of that, the island, Tasmania, is just very, very different. You know? When we get up in the north, you know, like around the Gulf of Carpentaria, or however it's mispronounced, the York Peninsula, to the east of that Gulf, it's jungly up there, you know. So they do have a lot of variety, but they don't have extensive areas that are devoted to these various sorts of things. Much of it is really, really dry.
So they're in a dry part. They end up there. They have to work to make some money. So they're tourists, and they ran out of dough, and so they're working for their keep, and they end up in this place called the Royal Hotel, but it's out in the middle of nowhere, where it's really dry. It's a mining town, or community, I guess, not even really a town, right? And then there's very few women there, almost nobody in there. It's kind of a rough scene, and it's more than what the girls bargained for, especially one. There's one of them, she's more easygoing, whatever, but the other one, she's scared. She does not feel comfortable being there, and really,
Is it the climate or just a bunch of roughneck guys?
it's with a bunch of roughneck kind of
Yeah,
guys.
I'd
She
be
doesn't.
scary,
She
scared.
doesn't feel good.
As
And-
a even when I was an athlete, I would have been scared to be in a place like
Yeah.
that.
So, I don't like what happened in the end, but the movie was very well done. And anybody who watches this, you should be able to identify with the woman who's scared. It's really about her, and her friend is not very responsible. She doesn't think ahead too much. Like, they're in this position because her friend ran out of money. Her friend they were at a bar and her card was declined, and she's like, oh well, we gotta think of something else to do. Okay, so here they are. But Anyway, worth watching. Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret. Better than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
It stars, well, it stars a young girl, because it's about a young girl, but it has Rachel McAdams in it and Kathy Bates, and they managed to pull it along. And, yeah, I read that Judy Blume.
Well, that's where
novel.
that's where I've heard of
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
But I knew a lot of kids who had, because I'd heard the I must increase my bus thing. So I'd heard about it, and I remember starting to read it and thinking, this is for kids. But I was a kid at the time, but it just didn't seem, it wasn't the kind of thing I wanted to read. I was reading Stephen King when I was 10, so it didn't interest me at all. And a lot of things that the other girls were reading, like the Sweet Valley High and stuff like that, didn't interest me at all. I had no interest. I tried to, I started reading some, didn't like. Just thought, wow, this is really stupid. So anyway, yeah, better than I thought. Wednesday season 1. It's a cross between Addams Family, Harry Potter, and what else was I saying?
Well, I
I
said
said something else.
as a joke,
No.
the Munsters.
Yeah, but that's
the reason why I
not at
mentioned
all.
that is hoping it would trigger with you.
No. It kind of threw me off my game the last time you said it, and threw me off even more this
Sorry.
time. So, no, Nancy Drew,
There we go. See.
because it's mystery sort of thing. But yeah, I didn't like the writing overly much. I mean, it's from the imagination of Tim Burton, it says on here, and
But he's not actually
And-
given credit as a writer. So
well, no, I noticed there was a woman writer in the credits, and I'm like, okay, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
While I was watching it, so I don't.
So it's
I don't know
basically.
exactly
oh, sorry.
what.
I thought you were finished. It's basically the Addams Family. This is
Yes.
one of the characters. in
Yes,
it.
this is Wednesday.
I kind of. I thought it
The-
was Tuesday
the
or
girl.
Wednesday, but
One thing I did like about it is she ends up in this school, and one of the teachers, or I think she's a teacher there, is played by what's her name, who played Wednesday in the Addams Family movie back years ago. What's her name again? Christina Ricci.
There
So
we go.
that was
No,
cute.
that was
That was a cute touch, putting her in as somebody who's a part of Wednesday's environment, right?
That was a Tim Burton production too, right?
I think it was. I'm not sure though. I didn't care for the movie. I honestly, this isn't great. Although I know that it's going to be very successful, and it was entertaining enough that I was able to write poems while this was on. Because I'd listened to this Being Human disc, and then that'd inspire me to write some poems, and I'd slap on whatever TV and get to work writing poems, and it worked out really nicely.
I think the problem I had with that movie was, aside from Ricci, was it Christina Ricci? Is that her name?
Yeah,
I think the movie was miscast.
yeah,
Of course, when a character like Gomez, and especially Morticia, I can't imagine people being better for the roles than those two.
Oh, than the original ones.
Yeah, exactly.
I know. That's the thing, is how do you top that, right? And they didn't with this either. They had Catherine Zeta-Jones playing Morticia,
Yeah.
which, yeah, she's
She's
hot.
got the looks,
But,
she's kind of got, I don't know, the energy's different.
yeah. And who did they have playing Gomez? Somebody who wasn't as good either. So,
Well, I mean, that guy was
yeah,
hilarious
he was-
because he
he
was
was
just
great.
like manic, but in
Yeah.
a kind of a controlled, civilized kind of way. It was the way he rolled his eyes. I think he had big eyes. I'm not sure. It was fascinating.
yeah, it was pretty great.
It was just too good for TV, really.
Yeah. No, anyway, I guess that's the problem. But mostly it was that I couldn't understand where they weren't building Wednesday's character right. so they had her throwing piranhas into a tank, into a swimming pool with people, and people are getting hurt like badly. One person was less anatomically correct afterwards, apparently. So then they have her caring about other people and stuff, and it's like, what? You have to build that somehow so that I can see that that is the same character, that this even makes any sense. So some problems with that one.
So anatomically not correct. You know, like she might actually be doing the world a favor if her Donald Trump in him is a certain piece of his, a very apparently small piece of his anatomy. Yeah.
Okay, so the 4th and final season of Doom Patrol. So it had there was one episode. The worst episode in this was the musical. Oh
my God.
The music. They seem to want to do a lot of musical episodes now, and that's.
On
I like
various TV
musicals,
shows?
so yeah, on all sorts.
Okay.
I like
Gotta
musicals,
do
so
what you
that's
do.
not gonna bother me usually. But if you're gonna have a musical, you have to make sure that you have music that's worth making a musical with, which they didn't here. And 2, you have to have people that not only that can singing, but sing well together. And you didn't have that here. So this was just a flop. It was dreadful.
Well, they look good together on the back here. They're all strutting towards the camera.
Yeah.
Is this a cartoon, comic book thing?
Well, I
or-
guess it must be. I'm not sure, but I did like how it opened up. It opened up really well. There was a bad guy who had like a cod piece that he shot lasers out of or whatever. It was awesome.
Okay.
And there were a lot of good jokes surrounding that and whatever, right? So that the first episode on this, it started out strong, but it just kept going downhill all the way along. And so, whereas I talked about Jack Bryan and how at the end of that, you're like, I want more, right? And you know it's the final season, you want more. With this, it's the final season, and you're like, ugh.
Yeah, hey Kevin.
Yeah, who
It's
cares?
over. It's like getting over a dental appointment, it sounds
Yeah.
like. But yeah, it's a DC series. I've heard of it. I don't know if I ever got hold of one. I feel almost deprived.
There wasn't enough story to even interest me to carry from one episode to the next, and it really was a disappointment.
I like the guy who looks as though he's survival of plastic surgery at the level of Kenny Rogers or
Yeah.
Ed Murray at their last one. You know, he doesn't want to show his face. Cyborgs, geez, when are they going to give up on that? It's been around. That idea's been around since the 60s, I think.
Okay, so Aristotle and Dante. I just bottom of the stack. It's really boring. I don't care about this sort of movie anymore. Magical road to self-discovery, whatever. It's just I don't know. I think Are You There, God did a better job of some magical self-discovery of
So this
I mean of a different kind, right?
Teenage
But whatever.
self-discovery and stuff like that. No,
Yeah, I guess they would have been.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Dante's not one of my favorite books, and really Aristotle's not one of my favorite.
Well, they're the names of these characters in
I
the
know,
whatever.
but when you name drop like that, some people might actually take it seriously.
All right. So you wanted to talk about Beyond the Visible. Hilma.
Yeah.
Okay. So you start talking about that. And I don't know, you might want to talk about Salvador Dali a bit.
Yeah, maybe in connection.
Yeah. But I'll leave those out and you can go ahead.
So there are some people strutting around this world, too many of them really, strutting around. I'm not talking about being in this world. Some of them maybe shouldn't be around, but most of them are just more ridiculous than they are really harmful to other people. But they're strutting around thinking that they're, well, there was one guy, he claimed to be a philosopher and an economist, I believe. It's on CBC. and he was saying all you had to know about capitalism was know four novelists. And I'm going, it'd be in the English tradition. No, not English, but the Western tradition. I'm going, who would they be? And I thought Zola and Dickens. And then when I got 50% of the four, which is pretty good because the other two are ridiculous. I mean, I don't know if Jane Austen even made it to 1850. At least Zola made it into the 20th century, if only barely. I think he made it to 1902. Dickens died fairly young, so he didn't make it to see 1900. And so the other two were Jane Austen and it wasn't even Victor Hugo, or however you want to mispronounce it. It was, I guess, his immediate great predecessor, Balzac, or as we said, Balzac. We've actually got a Balzac here in Alberta. Can you believe that? And I'm sure it was named after this French novelist. We always said Balzac, but it would be Balzac, accent on the second syllable. And what was his name? Honoré. It is basically mean honored in French. Honored Balzac. And wow, they don't tell you much of anything about economics. They yip and yap a little bit, particularly Zola, but he didn't really know. So right now I'm reading his novel. It's part of a huge long series, Rougon Macquart, or something like that. The Macquart is like Macart. It's like I think it's a Scottish name, M-A-C. Anyway, like l'argent, it means silver, but it also, by extension, in French, can mean money. In English, argent, it just means silver, and it just refers to the color. It doesn't refer to silver as a means of exchange or anything like that. We can use silver that way in English. But, he's got it's basically, it seems to be about the stock market. Yeah, they had a stock market. They call it the bourse. And in some languages, it means purse. Probably our English word, I should say. Purse comes from bourse. And he's basically got this idea that it's gambling. For the majority of people, it is gambling. But for people who actually know what's going on, i.e. Warren Buffett and Joseph Kennedy, back in his day, he made a killing, maybe even another fortune, during the stock market crash of 1929. That's Joseph Kennedy. Warren Buffett apparently took something like investing, money, handling money. I think it was investment at, what would it have been, Columbia, maybe New York University, from the guy who wrote the text. Did he? Oh yeah, he wrote the standard text, the guy who was teaching this course. And according to what I've read, and this could be a pipe dream, kind of like a myth, but Warren Buffett's the only person to get A+ in that course, ever. And this prof could have been easily one of those guys that went into overtime, maybe into his 70s or something like that. Taught it a long time, apparently. Warren Buffett's the only guy to get that. You get an A+, and he understands investing. And one of the important things about investing is to understand in your guts. When the stock, you buy cheap and you sell dear. What does that mean? When the stock market goes down, that's cheap. You buy. You make sure it's gone down as far as it's going to go. But, this is the way it goes. Boom! You got a long time period after it crashes to get into it. But people are running scared, literally running, wherever. Some people are jumping from high towers and stuff like that, committing suicide because they've lost the money.
So there's this long refractory period where the stock market, it doesn't even roil much. It's just flattened out. Doesn't roil because people aren't buying. And here, when it's building up to a peak, it's roiling. There will be little crashes, and people will get out, and some relatively smart people will buy, at a relatively cheap price. But it's still expensive because it's higher than historic averages. So for guys like, and then of course you sell dear. You sell it, you try and read when it's going to crash, but you don't wait until the day before you get out. And, they say, oh, you can't tell based on the performance of, like when a stock goes up a certain percentage, you can't tell whether it's going to go up the next day. No, you don't look at that. What you look at are, like earnings ratings. You look at who operates the thing. You look at how much they're exposed to debt, all this sort of stuff. And you can read what's happening, and you look at across the board. What you really look for, I swear, Warren Buffett looks at, what is it called? It's a question of how fast stocks are selling. And this could be like, when they go on the market, are they bought? So it's a rate. I'm glitching on what the actual term is, the technical term, but it's basically how many people are selling, how many people are buying. And when it gets to a certain point, you want out if you're a smart person, like Warren Buffett. So he knew, for example, in 2008, the stock market was going to crash, and he's going around saying, I'm not shorting the market. Joseph Kennedy wasn't nearly as nice a guy. 1929 shorted the market. He knew it was going to crash. And that's how he made a killing. He shorted it. And I'll explain that to you some other time because we're dealing with another topic here. But the thing is, Emile Zola, I think is his first name, didn't understand. He's saying it's a crapshoot. It's like going to Las Vegas. No, it includes the house. The house doesn't always win, as in Las Vegas. But guys like Warren Buffett and Joseph Kennedy, they're the house. They're making money off of it. They're not gambling. There's a slight gamble on any particular transaction, but they're making huge money overall. That's what they do. So Zola doesn't understand it, and he understands that system better than Dickens does, better than Balzac does, and better than, particularly, Jane Austen. I don't know if her stuff is about capitalism at all. It's about women trying to make their way up in the world by making fortuitous marriages to people who come from the gentry, landed gentry, aristocracy. And of course the aristocracy have a little bit of trouble when she was writing before in England. England had been increasingly run by capitalists. Some of them had shifted over, probably more in England than any other major society in the world. They shift over, and they probably had a means of transition because oftentimes big landowners had a mill, and so they became business guys. They're running a mill, and so that would be a mill for milling grain. Milling basically means grinding, and but then they'd they'd be running that off of a water source, right? A mill run is something that is used to run a mill. And then they would have jumped to textiles, some of them. And they would have